Blizzard really is not very good at keeping secrets, it seems. Not only have there been countless leaks when it comes to the 222 role lock, but then they accidentally published their own announcement too early on the day of release. And to top it all off, they also accidentally leaked the next hero, Sigma. Now that is what I call unlucky. At any rate, the perceptive among you may have realized that I for one have been fairly quiet when it comes to this particular subject. I mean, sure, there was a Twitter post like once, but far from the density of coverage that other YouTubers have displayed. As much as there was a bit of a wasted opportunity for what I consider easy content, I figured that once I start dipping my toes into those leaks, I would feel obligated to address it every single time a new leak comes around. And knowing that track record, I just did not want to go back to repeating the same things over and over again as I have done last year. Now that we finally have official confirmation on its implementation, I feel comfortable talking about my own thoughts surrounding this subject. And in the process, I would like to address some of the community complaints and worries when it comes to what this is going to do to the game. This is less about groundbreaking new information than it is about my own take on it. To set up the premise for our video today, the subjects I want to address include the following. Overall competitive consistency, as in knowing what kind of experience to sign up for at the time of hitting the Q button. The eradication of the flex playstyle, the increase in DPS queue time, and the long-term effects of the system on the competitive ladder. This is a very broad topic that a lot of players feel very strongly about, so there are a lot of different perspectives to consider. If I happen to miss a crucial point of information or happen to grossly overlook a key argument, then please feel free to yell at me in the comment section below. But for now, let's get right into this. One of the key problems that the 222 role queue is trying to address is consistency. Prior to Season 18, if you hit the Q button, you have no idea what kind of experience you're signing up for exactly. Depending on your experience, you might know the ballpark of possibilities, but let's be honest, the competitive ladder never fails to impress us just by how dysfunctional it can be. Knowing that every single match you play in will have 2 tanks, 2 supports, and 2 DPS on both sides means that we can say goodbye to the clown fiesta that we have today. Supports can consistently charge the ultimates knowing that tanks are always going to be present, even when the tank duo itself consists of very suboptimal picks. They are still big HP bodies that can be used, and the same goes for all the other roles. The long and short of it is that it's easier to learn Overwatch knowing how many roles are going to be covered rather than having to expect some nonsense that only works because you have never played against it. And one of the core issues of competitive play, according to many high-level players, is that players are getting boosted higher than they have any right to. Well, it seems that way in part because players can get away with only mastering a slice of the game and through sheer RNG make it high up on the ladder. And then they seem willfully inefficient in situations where that expertise is not required. It is way easier to learn how to play tank if you always have a second tank by your side. And it's also easier to learn how to play support when you know what the hell you're supporting in the first place. Players are now going to be able to learn the game in a more consistent environment, thus improving more easily. And they are allowed to focus all of their attention on mastering their craft, which becomes a valuable skill set knowing that this exact skill is going to be required in every single match they play. Besides that, a lot of problems are brought up as an argument against this new system, claiming that it won't fix any of them, and as such, implementing it makes no sense. For example, it's not gonna fix one-tricks, it's not gonna combat throwing, and it isn't doing much at all against smurfing. And I mean actual smurfing. They do make it so you don't technically need an alt account for practicing other roles anymore, since you get different skill ratings for different roles. The reason that all these arguments are fairly nonsensical is because the 222 role queue does not aim to fix any of these problems in the first place. It's like saying that building schools in underdeveloped countries does not fix world hunger. Yeah, it doesn't, but it also didn't try to. At the end of the day, it is still trying to improve a problematic situation in any way it can. When I say that 222 role queue is not the solution, then I mean it. It's not. It will not magically fix ranked in its entirety, but that's because it doesn't have to. What we are looking for is not a fix, but an improvement. So long that the new system in place makes for a better experience, it does not matter that it is not a perfect one. Because really, according to many comments I read, that's seriously all that many players are looking for. An improvement. Now, when it comes to flex players, a part of me wants to say that they don't exist. You see, even when you're the type of player that allows their teammates to pick their best heroes first to then round out the composition, you specifically, yes you Jeremy, are better at some heroes than others. Even if you enjoy flexing between every single tank and support in the game, chances are that you're I don't know, Zarya is better than your Wrecking Ball. No player out there is equally good at every single character in the game. and chances are that you'll improve more efficiently by focusing your efforts on fewer of them anyway. However, flex playing as a general playstyle is likely gonna go the way of the coin flip. Because yes, while I am a big proponent of specialization, it is a simple fact of the matter that there are players out there that enjoy the flex way of playing. And to them, having to choose a role ahead of queuing up is a downgrade. This is not gonna sound very nice, but we have to look at the bigger picture here. Flex players make for a very tiny subset of our community. There are not enough of them out there to make for an overall better gameplay experience for most players. Sure, if all of us were somewhat decent at every role and we would constantly be running into each other while also being willing to cooperate, things like 2-2-2 role queue would not be necessary. But people are just inherently selfish. There are not enough flex players out there to make that happen. So to improve the experience for more players, this one specific playstyle is unfortunately going to be eradicated in the process. Okay, now this is a tough one because honestly, I have very little sympathy for DPS players in large. I have not made very good experiences with that kind of player, and as such, I have a hard time feeling bad for any potential increase in queue time that they might get. But let me try to put my biases away for the sake of this discussion, because there are some valid points to be made. A lot of comparisons have been made to World of Warcraft, where DPS players are actually getting significantly longer queue times for dungeons than any other role. That simply comes down to the fact that there are more DPS specs available in total than any other spec in the game. Any class that can be a healer or a tank can also be a DPS, on top of classes that can only be DPS and then choose between 3 different flavors. Additionally, more DPS are required for any type of content than the other roles anyway. Every dungeon only needs 1 tank and 1 support, but a total of 3 DPS, and that scales up when going into more hardcore content like raiding. So it really is not as simple as to say, yeah, well, there are more DPS than anything else because it's more fun than tanking and healing. Because the way the game was built, there are more choices in the DPS category than any other one, and you need more different types of DPS to beat any given piece of content anyway. When it comes to Overwatch, I would make the argument that there's a solid chance of support players getting close in numbers when it comes to popularity. But Smurf accounts might inflate that number in favor of DPS, simply because of the sheer amount of players that make DPS only accounts for the sake of practice or for the sake of stomping. Anyway, the main problem to me is not the increase in queue time. It's the fact that you can't do anything else while queuing. In World of Warcraft, you can participate in any number of activities while in queue, but you can't do that in Overwatch, and that is a massive problem. You can't expect a player to look at a loading screen for 10 minutes at a time. Other activities have to be made available, like playing custom games, going to the training range, etc. They are, just like in World of Warcraft, implementing an incentive system where any role that is currently in high demand gets bonus rewards for queuing up as that role, and as of making this video, the reward is a bonus loot box. But beyond that, there is no good reason for why DPS should not suffer longer queue times if it really is the most popular role in Overwatch. I mean, here's my take on it. For years, a lot of DPS players have prioritized their own fun over anyone else. People lock for DPS when clearly you are in need of a support or a tank. People expect others to flex while stubbornly playing a suboptimal damage character. There has been very little goodwill coming from too many DPS players over the years, and as such, you pretty much reap what you sow. Playing quad DPS is more fun for the DPS players than anyone else in the lobby, because they can take advantage of sheer chaos rather than actually learning how to play the game in a coordinated environment. It is not fun for most support players to solo heal a mix of flankers and snipers. It is not fun to have to play perfectly as a main tank because there's no off tank to help you in creating space. But it is fun to dive the backline with 3 flankers while a sniper demands the attention of the enemy team. DPS players had their way long enough if you ask me, and I don't feel bad for them getting longer queue times if it means that my games will no longer suffer from their selfish behavior. Now, I don't have the best track record when it comes to predictions and theories, so take everything I say here with a grain of salt. But what I'm hoping for when it comes to the future of Overwatch is an overall improvement in match quality over the coming year. Overwatch, as is right now, is a very difficult game to learn, let alone play perfectly. There are a lot of inconsistencies that make it very hard to be a good player without investing a lot of time. So making it easier for us to learn the game by streamlining the experience should be a net plus at the end of the day, as we can learn the game more easily and our teammates should become more competent over time. When it comes to the loss of creativity that many players use as an argument against the new system, I can only say, what creativity? High-level players either default to their one-trick heroes or what is currently considered meta, and low-level players are more occupied with personal improvement than thinking about creative plays. You can't lose something that was not present in the first place. At best, a tiny amount of players were actually taking advantage of the free-form playstyle that we had in the game to this date. And just like with the flex player example, I don't think that this justifies ruining so many more games for most of the other players out there. It is not a perfect system by any means. Obviously, you're gonna have situations where you get 2 off-tank players or you are lacking a main healer, but it is definitely worse than that right now. The amount of games I get where I either have to make 4 support players work or am forced to work around 4 DPS is absolutely staggering. I'd rather play around double off-tank while knowing I have a second support by my side than having no tank around at all. And I think many other players agree, and for me personally, I am more inclined than ever to actually play tank myself. The only thing holding me back from playing tank was the fact that I refused to learn it in an inconsistent environment. Quite frankly, I am not good enough to solo main tank as anything in any situation. But if I can play Reinhardt with an increased chance of getting a Zarya, knowing I have 2 supports, hell yeah. I love playing main tank and quick play every time I get a team like that, and I think many more players are going to warm up to that idea as well. I firmly believe that after a short adjustment period, the long-term effects on the ladder are going to be positive. And I'm not even going to try to hit you with the "it's easier to balance" meme, because let's be honest, Blizzard has a long and rich history of having no idea how to balance competitive play in many of their IPs. So that is not something I would hold my breath for. Overall, I am very confident that for many players like myself, this is going to make for a better gameplay experience one way or another. Before I send you off for the day, I just want to do a quick shout out. If you want to support me and the content I make on YouTube, I would very much appreciate if you sign up for my Patreon. No, I'm just kidding, I don't actually have a Patreon. I do, however, have YouTube memberships. If you click the join button right below this video, you can choose to support my channel for as little as $1.99 a month. It doesn't sound like much, but it actually makes a tremendous difference for me to not be entirely reliant on AdSense. By supporting my channel, you can unlock access to the members-only social tab on YouTube, as well as a VIP role on my Discord, link in the description below, where you'll get to take part in community polls and get sneak peeks on my upcoming videos before they go live. If anyone is interested, I might even do regular game nights where we can hop into the arcade to have some fun. But that's enough chilling for today. Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on the 2-2-2 role queue system? Do you foresee the end of Overwatch as we know it, or do you happen to be just as hopeful as me? Let me know down in the comment section below. While you're down there, don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.